Welcome to the Bicycle Kick podcast, where we discuss money, power and politics in sport. I'm Lachlan and I'm a lawyer.
I'm Max, I'm a business person and former sports agent.
And I'm Jordan, just a sports fan with opinions.
Come here every week, like, subscribe and share our content. Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. It's me and Jordan today talking about my favourite topic, Manchester United.
Sadly.
Well, unfortunately for Jordan. And our intention on this podcast is to talk about every club in the 92, every club in the English football pyramid. And today we're starting with a club that's very close to my heart, Manchester United. Now, I've been a fan of United for a very long time. Was I born in Manchester? Did I grow up in Manchester? No.
Doesn't make sense, but sure.
Yeah, this is the issue. So many people that live in London are now Manchester United fans. And there's a reason for that. It's the most global footballing entity, I would argue, in the world. So many people have this debate. Are they the biggest club in English football? Jordan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, especially growing up, like, for sure, you guys were winning everything until then your rivals started winning everything. It pains me to say it, but yeah, I would say you are the biggest club in English football.
Yeah, you see that? We've got him on camera saying that now, everyone. I'm going to repeat that before every podcast now.
Yeah, it's undeniable, really. I guess your global reach is massive. I mean, other teams are contending. I mean, Arsenal, which we'll come on to on a separate episode as well. We're getting there. I guess City win everything. Not a big club, though, but they just win everything.
And also Chelsea, like, do they have the biggest history in the world? Not really. I mean, Roman Abramovich came in and kind of everything, all the fortunes changed. Yeah. Now you found a load of Chelsea fans.
Still quite a young club in terms of the building a club.
Yeah.
I guess profile across the world, really.
But this is what the most mental thing is, right? Is that, as we say, like when we're growing up, Manchester United, everyone wants to support them. But very few people know about the financial elements of Manchester United and actually what tied them into being now the biggest footballing club in the world. Because we're trying to fight for the signing of Mateus Fernandes, Elliot Anderson. We can't afford them.
But somehow you still just manage to pluck some money out of nowhere.
We get some money out of nowhere, and we're very shrewd and we're smart now, looking for good deals, paying, 40. Well, we've got Tielemans' release clause.
Yeah, I don't mind.
So... But the reason for that is through a lot of financial mismanagement, arguably. Yes. And that's how we've now got here. Back in the day, Sir Alex Ferguson used to say, we can outbid any professional football club in the world for a player. It was Ed Woodward said that to Andy Mitten on United We Stand. He said, we can outbid anyone in world football. Yeah. We were signing everyone. We got Pogba for 90 million. This is even like post Sir Alex Ferguson as well. Before that, Eric Cantona, Roy Keane. You're getting these players. It's Juan Sebastian Veron, Diego Forlan, Ruud van Nistelrooy, it's Wayne Rooney. It's insane how far it goes. But then now we're in this position, which we're going to talk about today, is, well, how have we now ended up where we finished 15th last season, praying for a Europa League win that never happened the season before last? So let's get into this, right? So let's talk about it. So in 2005, the Glazers bought Manchester United. Right. And this is where it all started. Because they thought, okay, well, we may have enough money to buy the club. We don't know if that's going to be the case. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a leveraged buyout. Okay. And that is effectively, imagine you're buying a house. And normally what happens is the bank will give you a mortgage. In this case, what happens? Well, the house pays for itself.
Yeah, it's paying for someone to buy it.
Yes.
And own it.
It's insane.
Essentially.
So like 660 million of debt to basically pay for Manchester United was placed on the club's books.
Nice.
So it was loans to Citadel, Oxif Capital Management, Perry Capital. The high interest loans on these accrued at 14.25%.
Jesus.
And then to 16.5%.
And also like 2005, that's a massive interest rate at that time, isn't it? And I mean, like, I get it in that era at that specific around that time. You had Arsenal gone invincible. You had then Abramovich coming in. Like, you had this money coming into football. I understand it. Like, you need money. You needed money to compete. But it's just, I get it from a corporate sense and commercial sense. If you can get something to pay you money to have it, why not, right?
Yeah, that's what people are saying, right? It's smart. Like, why wouldn't you? And like, this does happen in corporate deals. Yes. Like, it's not alien. But the issue is that when these people come in, you need to be successful straight away. And let's see, but this is the problem, is that like, you're hoping for a present greatness to pay for like future pain.
Yeah.
Everyone says to me, it's like, oh, great, you now get to suffer because you were happy in your childhood.
Yeah,
and it's valid.
I'm so happy because I had to go to school. Sorry, just a tangent off of Man United.
Yeah.
I had to go to school. We lost 8-2 to you.
Yeah. What a day that was.
We were getting battered every year.
Yeah.
We'll come fourth. Great, cool. But
yeah.
I had to go to school and talk about that every week while you guys are just winning back-to-back trophies, winning Champions Leagues. Like, of course, you can't sit there and say you wouldn't be envious of that team. And when you started to be horrible, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I still love it. And it's great.
Well, the issue is, right, so the debt now stands over £1 billion.
Right.
So what are we doing now? Like £1 billion is absolutely insane. I've been to the fan protests. You know, you've got the green and gold scarves. It's very Glazers out.
Yep.
It's been like that for a while now. And every now and then, you know, I'll go into it in more detail about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the investment that's come in and the new stadium and all of that. But it almost seems as if they're just trying to get by under the radar. Okay, let's throw a shiny new toy at the fans every 4 or 5 years. Oh, look, here, you didn't think we have money? Here we go. Here's Cunha, Sesko, and
It seems like that's
Mbeumo.
every season now, isn't it? And it's like, the question I really have to you, to be honest, is with all these signings coming in and the supposed change, granted, majority of them haven't worked out as well if you wanted. Why is the finances still the most important part of a Man United fan's problems at the moment? We still sit there and think about, still sit there and think about all the financial problems with the Glazers, but they're giving you these signings, right?
Yeah.
So where does that sit for you?
I get what you mean. So, as you know, it's twofold. So, you have the fact that the Glazers have taken dividends. So they've taken £266 million worth of dividends since they've come in, right? And you may think like, oh, of course, like you have a profitable company, you know, you're going to take revenue from it. They are the only billionaire owners in the Premier League that have been taking dividends, right? Roman Abramovich, and we talk about the, you know, the turmoil in which he left Chelsea, right? He was still giving shareholder loans to the club and then wrote them off when he sold the club.
Yeah, he had a passion for Chelsea.
He had a passion and a love for Chelsea that still stands today as well. I mean, have you seen John Terry talk about Roman Abramovich, his relationship with him? You know, you look at FSG at Liverpool, they don't take dividends. Stan Kroenke doesn't take dividends. What do? They basically do what you would do if you have a house. They let it accrue in value. And then that value, instead of then selling, you then just reinvest those profits back into the club.
Oh yeah, it's what you do if you care about what it is that you've got.
Yeah.
It's if you're looking at things for asset appreciation and you're looking at things for a corporate money making sense for yourself, you do what the Glazers do, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand the frustration in that. Like, yes, you're getting these shiny new signings each summer, but what's the point if you're going to just continue taking money out, and you haven't won a league in how long's it been?
2013.
So it's coming up to 14 years now.
So, but this is the issue, is that then when we see a football club like so entrenched in a community, the Glazers are American, like it's not going to be the same thing. So, you know, the thing about the interest rates is that will count towards a PSR bottom line. So now PSR, you know, when Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in, he said, oh, the club were going to be bust, you know, by Christmas. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe has already invested over £1 billion into trying to make Manchester United whole. So this was in 2024. Ratcliffe acquired 27% of United. He paid about $33 a share for the Glazers Class A shares. And an interesting thing about United, which we'll discuss on our sponsorship and investment podcast, is the fact that it is publicly listed on the stock exchange. So, but there are only 2 entities that control more than 10% of Manchester United's voting rights. So this is a problem, right? Is that all we hear, and we've spoken about this before, is, you know, PSR. Obviously now it's changing to squad cost ratios, but you hear, you know, PSR, oh, United lost around 324 million over the last 3 years, you know, and you can say, oh no, we still bought Cunha and Mbeumo, Sesko, like we're still buying players. However, if you look over the last, you know, 14 years since we won that trophy, we're not actually competing at a similar level to your other top 6 clubs. How do you get Tottenham paying what they've paid for Tonali and Mateus Fernandes? It is an absolute joke.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And you'd think like it's relative, right? Is that, okay, if they're now paying those high figures, you know, the whole transfer market now is very inflated.
Well, yeah, that's a whole separate issue on its own. It's you know, got Man City mainly to blame for that.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, it becomes a problem. I mean, last season you had a good run in, like you finished in a good position.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 game a week helped. Being out of every cup early helped also. But it's just still overshadowing that is always, okay, do we have enough money to go and buy someone else now? You know, what's happening with these big signings that we made? And it's the financial still overshadowing everything that's still going on at your club.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, an interesting point is that we always see things as being like in that season. So I think that you're going to talk about this on another podcast, but like when we see, if we take, for example, the Morgan Rogers deal recently, right, is that transfer value or whatever it is, like 120 million, like Villa won't receive that straight away, do they? You know, you've got the book value, you've got any outstanding costs that are still owed to the club and all that kind of thing. And I think that also relates to transfers now. So United, we had, I think it was about 200 million pounds. Like this year, we still have 200 million pounds of transfers still to pay, installments wise, of players we already have.
It's just like running around with a big credit card.
Basically, and it's still revolving.
Just a big Klarna.
But yeah, basically, I love Klarna, man. It's awesome.
There are other lenders available.
Yeah, that's very true. Sorry, are not sponsored by Klarna. But that's the problem, right? Is that like, oh, you can say, okay, cool. So 70 million for Sesko, whatever. That's not done. You deal with amortization. Obviously, that's over. And you've got player wages and so many different things. But this is the whole viewpoint, is that if the Glazers attach £1 billion of debt onto Manchester United, and the interest rates count towards your PSR bottom line, and you are paying above value, remember the Manchester United tax, Anthony for £80 million. Are you joking me?
Do you know what it is as well? Is I think, you know, going back to what you said earlier about United being able to outbid anyone. Yeah. You went through years of throwing money at people. Yeah. Like we can offer you massive wages. We can offer you the team a big transfer fee. And that's coming home to roost for you now. Yeah. You know that Man United will do that if they want the player. So
Edwin van der Sar said that Ajax were posturing United for a higher fee because they knew they could get more and more. This is Van der Sar, who's like a United allegiate, basically. So... And of course you would, wouldn't you? If you're someone else, you're like, oh no, we can get a bit more money. And that's why I like United at the moment. We're being a bit more shrewd. If you look at Edison, well, I mean, that was more about the medical. But there's a price that they're willing to pay and they will now walk away, which the issue is they're doing this now, which is great. So Jim Ratcliffe, I think he gets a lot of stick because inevitably he's tied to the Glazers. Yeah. I think it really didn't help him. And we'll talk about kind of morality and like how a club is perceived. But obviously he came in, made 250 redundancies. Yeah. And that's tough. That's tough to take. But Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I mean, he's from Manchester. He's someone that's part of that community, but he's a billionaire. So
like how much of that community are you still part of?
So when you're now charging fans, you know, a bottom line of £66 per game, and, you know, these senior citizens who had discounts of 50% now taken down to 25% discounts, and, you know, these lifelong Manchester United fans are now being priced out of seeing the team they love. It's tough. It's really hard. But as I say, that whole thing of like all the debt plus the transfers we're still making installments for, and what happens? Oh, yeah. Why don't we have a new £1 billion stadium? How about that?
You do need it, though.
Of course we do.
Old Trafford is iconic. Yeah. But there's always the jokes about the leaky roofs.
Yes.
Like
the rats.
And the rats, yeah. And I think it is due an upgrade. Yeah. And I think if you want to be that big club, you know, it's due an upgrade. And it's tough to sell your fans on an upgraded stadium when they're losing out completely always. Also, they're paying more on tickets, getting less discounts for the senior citizens. You're not doing anything on the pitch. Like, cool, you finished in the Champions League position this year. So that's, back and playing, you know, Tuesday and Wednesday nights is lovely. But there's nothing else to show with what Man United used to be. And then to say, oh, that's, you know, sorry, we've got no money, we're making a massive stadium change. It comes as, well, why is that your priority now? Yeah. Like, why are you doing that?
And again, it's probably, you know, for future revenue, isn't it? It's thinking in the future, because they say season tickets are going to be charged at a 20 to 30% premium now at this, future stadium. And I mean, it looks obviously incredible. I mean, did you see that pole with like the big flag on it?
I haven't seen it.
It was like basically like a gazebo type thing, and all the fans were like, that has to go. And so then Forza and Partners changed the style of it to remove that.
Hey, at least they're listening to the fans.
Well, there was so many public consultations, there were so many. Gary Neville was part of this like board that was discussing the renovation, because this is going to bring a lot of jobs as well to the culture around Manchester United as well, and in that area of Manchester. I think that's important. It's government-led, government-backed as well.
That's good.
And I think that is a very important part. However, most fans would rather just renovating the stadium as they see fit. But then the problem is that are you effectively neglecting your team? If you look at Barcelona, they were out of the Nou Camp was being restored, and then they went to like a nearby stadium. I mean, they've won the last 2 La Ligas anyway, so it hasn't been an issue. But same with Manchester United. When Tottenham were renovating, they were in West Ham Stadium. Oh no, they were in Wembley. They were in Wembley?
Yes, they play Wembley.
Yeah, so Tottenham were in Wembley. United, where do we go? So if you're renovating Old Trafford, no, I mean, they don't have enough fans or enough seats in there, do they, to support Manchester United?
Hey, it might look full for once.
Yeah, true. Hey, that's a very good point.
You can do a little fan sharing like a San Siro.
Yeah, oh my, that would be awful. Can you imagine the fights that would come with that? My God. I don't know how the stadium's going to look. And also, I think that on the Glazers side of things, like you can say, a lot of this debt is tied to, your Carrington just had a £200 million injection, and it looks incredible.
That really needed it as well.
It needed it.
You talk about what Ronaldo said when he came back, about how he hadn't changed since when he left in, what was it, 2009 he left?
Yeah.
And it hadn't changed in nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be the biggest club in England.
And you look, and other clubs are blowing us out of the water. Like it's a shame. I mean, that I talk from a very privileged position, that I support a club that has a lot of money, a lot of fans. Like, oh, boo-hoo! Like, we can't develop our training facilities.
Problems, isn't it?
Exactly, but I'm still going to stand on this hill and die on it. I don't care. Is that you got your infrastructure, redevelopment of stadiums, training facilities, your players, your investing into your academies, your fan groups around the world. There's a very funny interview. It was with Gary Neville and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe was looking for a way to balance the books, and Gary Neville was like, why don't you just send Harry Maguire to like a dinner with like 200 people from Manchester? They can ask him some questions and just charge them a fee, and then you can get like 20 grand from that night, and then just do that once a week. And so Jim Ratcliffe was like, yeah, if someone mentioned that to me, that would be a good idea. So,
I mean, it makes sense.
A great idea.
It makes sense. A dinner with a player.
But then they removed, so all these ex-United legends, they removed their like membership in a way, so that basically Manchester United gave a portion of their money to like Teddy Sheringham and like your ex-United players, so then they were still representatives of Manchester United,
acting as ambassadors.
Exactly, ambassadorial. And then again, when the staff redundancies came in, they were like, okay, this is a way for us to stop. Why? Do you remember Sir Alex Ferguson as well? He gets a payment still from the club. They stopped that as well.
I think if anyone deserves it, it's got to be him.
Oh, well, I won't have any of that talk. What are you on about? How dare you? Sir Alex Ferguson deserves the world. But so this is the picture we're in. This is where we've got to. And so now we need to talk about, what are Manchester United doing to pay for the sins of the past? What are they doing to try and get around it?
Okay.
So transfer factoring.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting concept where, say, if a selling club is selling a player and it's amortized over a long period, and they're like, oh, we don't want to wait 5 years until we get the final 15, 20 million, 10 million from this player. Transfer factoring is effectively, they sell off that debt to a regulated bank or an entity. And so that bank will send you straight away the funds. But then the issue is that, okay, those transfer installments, whoever they're coming from, now pay the bank directly. So say if I'm United and I'm owed 50 million, that bank will probably give me 40 million, 45 million. So it'll be less than we're expecting, but at least we get it now.
Yeah.
And so Bournemouth did this with Tyrone Mings when they sold it, and they put that money into redesigning and redeveloping the training facilities.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like doing like your everyday balance transfer on a credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah, you spend it, can't afford to pay it all back now. to get another bank to pay it for you, and then now you owe the debt to someone else.
But then is this not an issue that we just keep being in this place where we're still just always owing debt to someone? Because then what if that, third party club default rather, and so there are different ways. So like if a club wants to be savvy, they're like, oh, we're not involved anymore, give us the money, and then you guys are contractually like combined, and you can go straight after them. But a lot of these regulated entities like, no, we're the ones taking the risk here. No, you're still on the hook and we're just going to give you this money. But the issue is that recently the Premier League, they can only approve UK regulated financial institutions, and FIFA separately bans third-party ownership of players' economic rights and third-party influence over transfer and team decisions. So it's not an unregulated Wild West. It's pretty regulated.
Yeah.
Do you think it's smart? I don't think Arsenal or other clubs are doing that. You don't really hear too much about transfer factoring.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever anything that's spoken about. I think usually everyone worries about how many installments the transfer has to be paid in, and I guess also most clubs are good at selling their players as well, so you're kind of like in this one deal there coming in with say 10 million a year, and you're one deal there coming in with 8 million a year, and that pays for that, and everything's kind of moving hand. But a lot of the corporate world is just debt being taken on with more debt, and you're just leveraging more debt. Yeah, it literally does the exact same thing, and you just take on more debt to pay for your other debt, and then you just continuously end up in more debt, but you're using it for something valuable. Yeah. And the shirt sales, etc. Man United, I understand also you're doing a bit of a wage culling down as well, to try and become a bit more financially responsible. Yeah. I think it's needed. I think you had a lot of years where actually it made sense. Like you spent a lot of money and you worked and you won. Yeah. And you have something to show for it. And the years after that where you stopped winning and you're now left with all this crap that you had beforehand. Yeah. Now you're kind of finally trying to recover it, which is, I think is good. Yeah. But it's just about finding clever ways around it. And I think transfer factoring is a clever way around it, because you're making it a tomorrow problem instead of a right now problem. So you can try and make more money to try and pay for tomorrow's problem. No, I get you. It's tough because also United is a huge tourism club, isn't it? Like I'm constantly fighting with tourists from all over the world to go and watch Manchester United. Now we're back in the Champions League. Tickets going to be really hard to come by. And I think this is the problem, is that because Manchester United is such a global entity, you can't neglect the fact that it's so entrenched in the community. So everyone in Manchester does not like the Glazers. They want them out. And even if we're successful on the pitch, even if we win the Premier League and the Champions League, you're still going to be hearing, get them out of the club. Yeah. So, this is a thing of liquidity as well. I think like financially talking, if we're saying, okay, United have started transfer factoring and we need to talk about the credit facility, right? This revolving credit facility, because I haven't heard of other clubs having one. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, maybe once you start speaking more about some of the other
maybe
clubs.
we see, maybe Doncaster Rovers have 200, 300 million that they can lean on. Who knows?
Which might bankrupt them if they take it all out. Exactly. But you never know.
But basically, so United have around 350 million pounds that they can take out whenever they kind of need. And like, yes, you could say, oh, wow, this is just like an open pot of money that they can use whenever they want. But can you remind me, how does that affect anything in PSR? Is that an issue?
So the revolving credit facility itself doesn't affect score cost ratio.
Right,
it doesn't
affect
PSR. Yeah. So it's there. Again, it is kind of like that open pot of money for PSR standards and SCR, score cost ratio standards. But where it kicks in for score cost ratio is actually the interest on those loans. So unless you know, which we are not obviously privy to, what the interest on that credit facility is, we don't know how to factor that in for score cost ratio. So they could have a 10% interest on everything that they draw down. So you're drawing down 100 million, you're now paying 110 million back. But the 100 million doesn't go to your score cost ratio, but your 10 million does. And I guess in the grand scheme of things, as a big club like Man United, 10 million, it probably wouldn't touch the bank of
Champions League
SCR.
Ticketing revenue.
It's what half a season tickets. It's not much.
That's the amount I've paid when I've gone to United anyway. Yeah, it's fine.
But it's still something that needs to be factored in, because if you're going to go and then spend loads of money on players, it's something you need to think about. But it's great to have that money there. I just don't know if any other clubs do it. I wonder why other clubs wouldn't do it.
So we spent, I think, like 290 million in this last year. Cunha, Sesko, Mbumo, Lamans, Dorgu.
Did it work out?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, Andy Mitten always says that you need to wait, 3 to 5 years to see if your transfers have worked out, if you've had a successful window.
Yeah, fine.
Ian Graham, there was this book of How to Win the Premier League, and he basically said that you need to see, within that next 3 to 5 years, you need 60 to 70% of your transfers on the pitch after 3 to 5 years. So that's the way of seeing, are these transfers doing well? But as you say, if you're going for this, golden pot of money, which we all would really, really like, the problem is then if you're using that money to then buy players, then those fees are amortized. You're still paying these wages and all that, which does contribute to PSR. Yeah. And it gets very risky, because then you're still lending. And the problem is, and this is the problem with the Glazers, and this is why they're perceived so badly, is they are perceived almost like private equity investment, in that they are thinking of an exit. Like, how long can they keep taking dividends? Can they keep, taking these pot of money, more debt going onto a club? Because inevitably they think, once it's sold, it will be for a profit, inevitably, and they'll take the money then.
Well, see, this is the thing. I've just had two thoughts on that. Is, one could think, maybe get Man United back to some form of glory that they were at, and then it's time for exit for the Glazers when value's high.
Yeah.
But
which they already did, so Jim Ratcliffe, that was originally meant to be a sale as well.
Okay.
So we postured, I think it was a Qatari investment. It was meant to be about £6 billion is what they thought the club would be worth it. And then eventually it ended up being a minority investment.
But then, so that's one option, right? Yeah. But then you also sit there and think, okay, so say you've invested all this money into the club, but the club's making you a lot of money because you're taking the dividends, right? You're as a Glazers, you're laughing. Like, even if you get up to the glory and you make a lot of money, you win the league, or you win a couple cups, you might even go far in the Champions League. You've just made an extra couple 100 million for your team. Yeah. You're taking a nice dividend out of that. Why would you sell it? Yeah. As if you've won, your fans are happy because you've won. Who cares now?
But this is the thing, and this is why we're going to talk about who owns a football club, because it's like, well, what are you doing it for? Like, you're neglecting why people do own football clubs in those scenarios. Like, in the majority of cases, if you look at Tony Bloom at Brighton, he's a huge Brighton fan. Yeah. This is the issue. These clubs, yes, as you say, are we seeing them as companies? Are we seeing them as commercial revenue? Are we seeing them for being entrenched in the community? And that's so tough. It's really, really tough. And I just don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know at what point, we've got this project 2028, which is where we say, we want to win our first Premier League trophy since Sir Alex Ferguson by that time.
Okay. Kind of like a rip-off of the Arsenal Arteta's phases.
What was that?
We had the phase 1, 2, 3 up to 5, and he basically said that he gave us about a 3-year period where he thinks that from the minute he took over, and in that 3-year period he think we would win the league. Okay. So us winning the league last season was actually 1 year ahead of when he thought we should be winning it. Yeah. So in that period, he thought that's the period of time.
What was it? Was that the end goal, or was there like a then Champions League?
Well, obviously Champions League is the end goal, and it could have been both last year. But that was the aim, and that was the thing he had pitched to the club. Like, this is my project rebrand.
Wow. I mean, and also United want to win. And there's something as well, I think, that is neglected is the women's team as well. Like, United also want to win their first women's, Premier League as well. And I think that, inevitably so much money will go onto the men's game, just because of the revenue and sponsorship that brings in. But this ties in with a really interesting point, and I want to talk about kind of with Manchester United. So not only do you have all the financial mismanagement or scandals, but you have the things that are going on in terms of morality. Yeah. Right. So, if you look at Mason Greenwood, that was a very controversial issue. Yeah. And it was almost the court of public opinion, because the charges weren't actually brought against him. I think they were brought, but then he was found, not guilty, or they were dropped.
Dismissed. They were dropped.
They were dismissed, and we all heard the voicemails. We all heard the evidence.
Saw what we saw.
Yeah, so inevitably everyone is going to make a determination based off that, no matter what actually happens in the court. So on one hand, do you take, guilty until proven innocent until proven guilty, rather. Mm-hmm. This is where the women's team comes in, because inevitably you need to consider all the voices across a club.
Of course you do.
So, the women's club, all came together and said, this is violence against women. This is unacceptable. This is a player that needs to go. Mm-hmm. It took quite a long time for Greenwood to be loaned out. And, and there was umming and ahhing, and they were taking, information from many different groups and protesters saying, well, what do you think? What do you think? Because inevitably, as I say, it wasn't official that he was charged with anything.
No.
In the end, they were rather shrewd in that they loaned him, and then they ended up selling him, but they had a good kind of selling on clause as well within that. And he exited the club. And in the end, most fans can say, well, yeah, that was the right decision.
Yeah.
He ended up leaving. But again, when a club is as huge as Manchester United and has such far-reaching consequences, any decision that they have, surely we can argue that was probably the best decision in that, in those circumstances.
Yeah, of course. I think in those circumstances, you're no longer acting as a football club. If you're acting purely as a football club, you would say he hasn't been charged with anything. He is performing really well for us at the moment. He's staying.
Yeah.
And that's if you're acting purely as a football club. But as the big global entity you are, and as football clubs are becoming commercial businesses, I mean, they always were, but that's how they're acting and how they're perceived now. You really have to look at your sustainability and your social governance as a club. And there was no way I think Greenwood could have been returned into that team and anyone would have been happy about it. I mean, you obviously have certain United fans on social media being like, oh, bring Greenwood back, Greenwood back, But you can't say you respect your women's team and them telling you that they don't want him back and then you come and play him. You can't listen to what's happening in the public opinion and then decide to play him again. So yes, it was the right decision to go. I also think it was good for them in a corporate sense because they still protected their asset. Obviously he didn't loan and go for the value that someone of his talent could have gone for. But that's obviously comes with everything that he has done and has happened as well. But the sell-on clause allowed them to retain some money. So I think corporate wise it was good for them. It just took a while to get there.
And I also think as well, like if you look at their very long-standing relationship with Adidas, for example, normally in a lot of sponsorship agreements, whatever, you'll have like a morality clause. You'll have something in that. So if he's done something to bring the club into disrepute, and Adidas inevitably, they probably don't want to be tied to a club with that reputation if they're keeping him.
Of course,
that might make their decision easier. And as well, from an employment perspective, if you look at Benjamin Mendy, suing Manchester City because while he was being charged, and again, the allegation they were dropped as well, he was suing Manchester City because he's saying, well, you've stopped paying me because you think that I've done something that's in breach of your morality kind of obligations. Well, now I've been proven to be innocent by a court. Then what happens?
So how much do you owe me, and are you going to pay me?
Exactly.
And what happens now? And I think that's part of what takes that situation so long from a corporate standpoint. And we'll speak about it on the one when we discuss Arsenal and Thomas Partey. But I think it's a tough decision legally to get it right as well as from a business perspective. We all know morally what the right decision is to do, but from a business and contract perspective, it was tough, and it probably took them a long time to be able to get to that decision. And we all want that to happen faster. We all saw it. We all know what happened. So we're like, okay, make that happen now. But I guess I understand. Well, we obviously aren't privy to the contract, so we don't really know. But it's probably tough in that sense to try and make sure that it is handled correctly.
The thing, we keep talking about this is then what is a football club? So if you look at like the European Super League as well, so, United were also one of the clubs that were very much for that, they were involved, and it was very much, I think they were maybe like 4th or 5th club to, withdraw. And so it's like, oh, let's just wait and see what the other clubs do.
It might happen still.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, let's just have a watch.
And this is, Ed Woodward's now left the club, which is, I think all United fans can agree was probably the best thing that could have happened at that time. But it's very tough because, again, it's like, well, okay, the Glazers' standpoint, they're putting this money into a club, but they're
more like pulling it out.
Yeah, exactly. But they're standing back. They're saying to the people on the ground, your director of football, Ed Woodward, it's like, okay, deal with things in Manchester, deal with the footballing side of things. And this is why Sir Jim Ratcliffe has now come in and he's taking more control of that with, Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox. And I would argue that it's going well. I would say that they're doing well. But going back to the European Super League is that if you're based in America, you have no idea, like, fan sentiment. You don't know what's going on over here and the things that people will perceive to be good decisions. So let's look at, Jim Ratcliffe comes in, he makes 250 redundancies, right? That is awful. Yeah, that's really, and you normally do that when you get relegated to the Championship.
There was literally, I get the idea of saving money, but you're made redundancies. I would love to know what the highest wage earner was that they made redundant, because if we're talking about saving money, you need to cut some of your losses on some of the horrible players.
Oh,
rather than
valid.
Getting rid of someone on probably 30, 40 grand a year.
Yeah. And we eventually got rid of Anthony. he went to Betis.
It took a while.
It took a while. But I saw a thing on Twitter, and you always have to see, is this actually real or not? But it was basically in the canteen that they'd switched from like red meat to like white meat, so they again like try and lower the cost per dinner. And I thought, wow,
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's incredible. So the 250 redundancies. So again, it's when a club is so entrenched in the community. Manchester United was a working class club. This is where it comes from. So this is why it's so painful when these things are felt so much more. And as I say, I speak from my, ivory tower, and it's like, these first world problems, I'm privileged to, be a Manchester United fan. Had that success. But I go to Manchester, and when I'm there and I see the protests and I speak to people, these people are affected so much. I mentioned, as I say, that people of an older age have had their, season tickets slashed even more. The bottom end is £66 for a ticket. The other day, loads of United season ticket holders were emailed saying that their account would be restricted because United are trying to crack down on ticket touts and people that are selling, tickets illegally. And all these people are coming out being like, well, you're doing effectively a blanket ban before you know all the factors. And you know what the issue was, right? Is that on these season ticket holders' accounts, there were 5 or 6 different email addresses or 5 or 6 different accounts that tickets have been transferred to. Anyone who has a season ticket knows
you're selling
them
ticket
to your family or like friends.
If you can't make
make a game, like that's what happens. But Manchester United were doing, whether they ran, automated bots on all these accounts, it probably was. It'd be like, okay, let's just go through all these accounts. 6 people. That means that they're ticket touts and they just sell them off. Also, if you're a ticket tout, selling to just 6 people over the course of a season, you're an awful team. It's awful. What are you doing?
You're not making much money.
You're not making much money at all. So it's an absolute farce. So then we're in this position now where it's like, okay, cool. Let us see success on the pitch. We came third. We had, by our recent standards, a good season. We're back into the Champions League, and there's going to be so much more money and revenue generated from that, which I'm so excited for. I'm really buzzing about that. But it just comes with a cost, and it just feels like with every step we take, it feels like 2 steps back. Because inevitably, as I say, until the Glazers leave the club, I don't think fans are ever going to be truly happy. And at what point are the Glazers going to exit? Are they hoping, because it was an interesting switch from, looking for a whole buyout to going to minority investment. It's fantastic for the Glazers because they have a spokesperson on the ground being like, oh, you're not happy with the club? Blame Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Yeah. He's your new thing in place for people to look at and be like, he's the face of our problems.
Exactly. And also he's controlling the sporting side of the project, the everything to do with on the pitch. As I say, right now, fans are relatively happy with how things are going. We're making changes. You know, how many ex-United players are now on loan at Villa? It's insane. I know Garnacho obviously was sold to Chelsea. Now he's there. But Garnacho, Sancho, Rashford. You know what I'm really interested about is Rashford being reintegrated back into the club.
Yeah, I guess what happens there?
Yeah, because the biggest problem is his wages.
Right.
We have spent the last 5 years trying to rechange and reorganize our waging structure so that Bruno Fernandes, your best player and captain, is the highest earner. And
who's
everyone
after Bruno?
I think De Ligt and Maguire are on quite a lot of money. And that was Ineos's first year in as well. Yeah. So it was De Ligt,
I guess it was a big signing, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
At the time.
But again, this is the problem, is that your players that you sign for big money, the money needs to be on the pitch, doesn't it? Lissandro Martinez injured so much, De Ligt injured so much. Like you need your money out there.
Yeah.
Because as well, like how are you going to increase their value if you end up going to resell them in the future?
You can't.
So this is the problem, is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is now the spokesperson, and all this anger is now directed towards him. He gets booed when he goes to the club sometimes. And so you think, okay, we now have people in place. Ineos are, a multi-club ownership model as well. And you think, okay, these people are in place and they will make smart decisions. So they're looking in the managerial market. So what they've done with Michael Carrick recently, I think was good. They didn't follow what they did with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They said, okay, let's wait. Let's draw it out. Let's look into the market. Obviously, it didn't help. There was a World Cup on at the same time. And so now we're seeing, I don't think this has ever happened for us before now, the fact that your countries are now taking the best managers in the world.
Yep.
We never had that. Like growing up, Sven-Goran Eriksson, Fabio Capello, Felipe Scolari, Vicente Del Bosque, you think, okay, obviously they managed clubs in the past before our time, Del Bosque with Real Madrid, but it's like, no, now they're a national team manager and they don't come out of that.
Yeah, like Klopp going to Germany.
Ancelotti. Ancelotti at Brazil is insane. Thomas Tuchel, master tactician.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Master tactician. United approached him 3 times.
Even Italy approaching Guardiola for the role.
And did you see recently that the Athletic reported that Guardiola had an agreement to be the England manager? Yeah. So we're now seeing that. So now when you look in the managerial market, it's really tough. So I think it was smart of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and United to wait and look at the market. They spoke to De Zerbi, they spoke to Emery, but then on the flip side of that, they did this a year ago. Well, who did they sign? Ruben Amorim. And the really interesting thing about that is you have a billionaire, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He can't control everything. He can't run everything. Not. He backs Omar Barada, who's an incredible executive, was at Barcelona and Manchester City, to run things. It was Barada who was pushing for Ruben Amorim. So hard, right?
Just got that one wrong.
How can your whole managerial idea, right? And you're like, okay, the history of Manchester United, this is the biggest thing. Anyone who's a United fan knows playing the United way. It's a feeling, it's a sentiment. Okay. I know this sounds really stupid. It is. It's just, you look on the pitch. Arsenal. Yeah, it's like that is a United style of playing. Yeah. And a manager who he's going to play a back 3. And inevitably
refused to change it.
And he did change it and then went back, and then that's the storm, and then he got out and got a very nice payout, and now he's at AC Milan. I saw Ruben Amorim. I loved Ruben Amorim. I really was enthralled by him and attracted by this idea of a young manager who was like, we're going to suffer first and then we're going to succeed. I was like, yeah, we are going to suffer first. I'm going to do what Arteta did. Absolutely. And then never really, happened.
It's just not Arteta.
All the football Twitter was going crazy the other day because in his first press conference at AC Milan, he said, "Oh no, we're going to have to suffer." And then all
just recycling the same lines.
United fans were like, "Thank God he can suffer for another club that isn't ours." But just to end on this and what I said about Rashford, if we've spent years sorting out our wage structure, now Rashford comes in, he's on that high wages, and again, I think that it's the symbolism attached. We love Marcus Rashford and what he's represented, and coming through the academy and bursting onto the scene in the way he did against Arsenal and Midtjylland in the Europa League. But now it almost feels like there's an element of there could be a corrupting influence coming back, because he was part of that bomb squad that we were trying to get rid of. So now you need to change the psychology. And I think Michael Carrick's probably the best person, because he's a United legend. You know, he was a fantastic footballer. We're now of this age where all managers seems to be players that we were watching when we were growing up.
Yeah, it makes you feel really old.
Yeah, basically. Well, me and Rashford are the same school year. You as well, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, we're here right now. Rashford and fair play to him. So I think this all goes to show is that it's not easy to run a football club.
No.
You're going to make mistakes. You're going to... And so Jim Ratcliffe does that a lot. Like he hiked ticket prices and he came back like, but that was a mistake. He made his redundancies. He said, well, we had to make them, but we're not happy about that. I think there were some Manchester United employees that were hired back on like a contractor basis or freelance 0-hour contract, that thing, to try and reintegrate them. And who knows, when Manchester United start making more profit again, there may be actual kind of roles for them. But this is Manchester United. This is what we are. We are, as I say, I think we're the biggest club in the world. I don't
know about the world, but I'll give you England.
Fine. Real Madrid and Barcelona probably have something to say about that. Fine. We're the biggest club in England. And I'm just praying that everything that's happened will bring us back to where we belong, really.
Yeah. I mean, I love you guys suffering.
Yeah.
But I guess for the spirit of the game, it would be good to see one of the big, I guess, English greats back in the fold.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, as just a final closing sentiment, based on everything you've spoken about, like the financials of the club, what would you say, in short, is the biggest misconception you feel like that is in the fan space about Man United's financials?
I think that we can always go out and just buy someone.
Yeah.
I think every fan still thinks, because if you look at what we did last summer with Cunha and Bumo and Sesko, fans' perspective is that, all of this stuff that Jim Ratcliffe's been saying, we have no money. That's not true. Yeah. We can. That is a misconception. And as we've explained here today, is that, well, they're actually drawing on more debt to go and be able to make those signings.
Yeah.
Like, we've had to repay £110 million of that credit facility over the past 5 years. So transfer installments, we talked about transfer factoring. We're just pushing things further and further down the line.
It's another week's problem.
Exactly. That's basically what's happening right now. Until you get more investment, more shares. You look at what Vincent Tan did at Cardiff, just converting that debt into equity so he owns more of the club. That is the misconception, is that we actually have money, that actually, like, financially we're thriving, because we're struggling. We're not in the best position right now. And God, if we get a new stadium or we redevelop, fantastic, because the amount of money, ticketing revenue, more sponsorship, so much more money is going to, and that's what they're always hoping for, is that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow will come.
That thing that just suddenly clicks everything together.
Exactly.
You're like, here's all the money.
Yeah.
When really, I think, it should be going back to the roots of being a football club and being like, we're going to make our money by winning on the pitch.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with that more. So thank you everyone for joining. That's Manchester United, and join us next time. We'll be discussing another club of the 92.